Star's Journey, Chapter 4. Star's Point of View. I felt my voice get weak as I saw Emma disappear in front of me. My head screamed at me to use the fire I know I could wield, to protect myself from everyone, but I stood frozen in my tracks as Ava turned towards me. Her glowing gold eyes peered through my soul as she took a step towards me. I felt myself breathing heavy. Sharp intakes of air shook my lungs as I backed up towards the wall behind me. The magic chains around my wrists seemed to burn as I fought against them. The closer Ava got, the more powerful they were, the tighter they got, and the more they held me back. I stared at Ava as she opened her mouth. I was afraid she was going to start chanting again, to kill me like she just killed my sister. She didn't even look fazed. My body shakes as she speaks, her voice mimicking the proud expression in her eyes. "One less pure-blood monster in this world," she chuckled, her eyes glowing vibrantly. "Isn't that great, Star? I saved you. A pure-blood killed your father, you know. You better be thankful I saved you from a fate much like his." I flinched, pain surging through my spine as the chains got tighter around my wings. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to pull myself towards my wings in fear of them getting ripped off. I could feel my horns poking a hole through the wallpaper behind me. I winced in pain as I felt blood drip down my hand. I was holding Emma's necklace so tight it was cutting the palm of my hand, but like hell I was going to let it go and lose the last piece of her that I have. I wrapped it around my fingers, scared to lose it. "Be grateful! Thank me! I saved you!" Ava screamed in my face. I feel tears stream down my face, fear filling every inch of my body. "You killed my sister! Someone who only wanted to protect me!" I screamed back. "You are the monster!" I felt my voice crack as I yelled. Ava only stood back up straight and glared down towards me. She turned her back to me to look at a few of the members. "Bring her to the office." Ava snapped her fingers as she spoke. I couldn't help but thrash around to try and escape as those members walked towards me. I saw one create a spell circle in front of them, and before I knew it, I was out cold. I woke up about 2 hours later, still in my demon form and tied on a chair in the middle of a dark room. I make my eyes turn black to see in the dark, gasping when I see most of Ava's minions lining the walls. Angry tears filled my eyes when I glanced over at Clinton and Carl. A large door opens up behind a few members, and Ava walks in holding a few books, placing them on a table near the door. 4 people move out of the way for her to walk in the middle of the room. I could feel my breathing speed up again as my tail gripped the chair. My eyes glowed brightly, and the blackness in my eyes became natural as I stared at her. "Good to see you're awake," Ava said coldly, looking me up and down and scowling. What a pitiful form. She shook her head and turned to grab a book behind her. I felt my wings press against the ropes holding me down. "Stop doing this!" I screamed, my tail releasing its grip from the chair leg and swinging side to side. "Emma was good! She did everything she could to show you that!" I felt the tears streaming down my face. I glanced at my hands as I made a fist, pain surging through my palm as I saw her necklace still wrapped around my fingers. I felt a knot in my throat like it was confirmation of the sight I had to witness before they brought me here. "So foolish," Ava said lowly. "It was all a facade, and you should know that better than anyone. You witnessed it. You were there when she killed those 2 kids, and you still think she's good?" I couldn't help but stare at her as she walked towards me, her feet heavy with anger. I felt heat rise through my body, my blood feeling hot as I stared into her glowing gold eyes. She's good," I said, almost having to convince myself. I shake my head and glare at Ava. "She is good. She saved me. They were trying to kill me. Are you saying you would have just let them?" Ava looks unfazed as she thinks. She smiles at me, a crooked smile as she lights a flame under my chin, a deep black flame that somehow glowed in the black room. Would I sacrifice one life instead of ending 2? Her words echoed through my head as she smiled at me. Of course I would. And even now, I'm avenging those souls by getting rid of a sinful creature like yourself. I felt shivers run up my spine, and a tingling sensation continued through my skull and my horns. Her face was close to mine, intimidating. The fire under my chin was hot, but otherwise harmless. She had no intention of hurting me with this time. I felt a surge of rage flow through me before I quickly swung my head down, headbutting her with my horns. Ava quickly stepped back, grabbing her face with her hand, curling over with pain. 2 cloaked people came to her aid and held her up before she pushed them away, glaring at me angrily. I felt some remorse as her face was red, a small bloody spot where most of the impact was, but she wiped it away, smearing some blood that fell over her eye. She walked towards me, her footsteps echoing as she got closer. "You'll pay for that." I flinch, a small gasp coming from my lungs as Ava grabs my face, glaring at me and making me look her in the eyes. "You are a worthless, sinful creature, and I wanted to save you. But now..." My eyes widen, thrashing slightly as she squeezed my face. "Now I see you're just as unredeemable as your sister." "Don't talk about her like that!" I scream, breaking through the ropes that were weakly tied around me, the thread splintering and snapping as my wings pressed against the chair. I felt my palms burning as I brought my fist towards her face, and I stood in shock at my actions as she stumbles backwards. 2 men came up to her, running to make sure she was okay. I quickly looked around for some sort of escape as people started rushing towards me. I closed my eyes, creating 2 large fireballs in my hands and lifting them to my sides. "I don't want to hurt anyone!" I scream, turning around and watching as people stop in their tracks. I scream as 2 people from behind me don't stop running towards me, grabbing my hands. I use my wings to turn myself around, swinging them off of me. I fly upwards, slightly stumbling with my wings as I can't watch the way Emma flapped hers. I glare at Ava as she stands up, her face red and her hands have their own fireballs in them. I couldn't help the rage that made my eyes glow. Emma did everything she could to protect me, to protect all of us from someone who didn't even hesitate to hurt me. And you think I'm the monster? "Well, look at you now," Ava yelled, hiding a smile behind her eyes. "Bright, violent fireballs, a monstrous form, and that killer look in your eyes." I stood there, my wings flapping, and the faint moonlight glowed through the skylight above me. As I looked up to judge and escape, I felt something tug down on my foot. "You are just as bad as Emma, just as much of a sinful monster." "She's not a monster!" I screamed, throwing the fireballs downwards out of anger, regretting it as I looked down to see someone scream in pain. Someone else comes to their aid and heals them. I feel my breathing speed up as I feel everyone's eyes on me. Ava looks at me, smirking as she sees the reality of everything sinking in. I looked at my hands. The painful memory of hurting Emma with my fire made my palms hurt. I shake my head in a panic as I shoot another fireball towards the glass roof, shattering it above me. "Get her!" Ava screamed as people scattered around, running outside and trying to jump for me. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I heard her words before I flew too far. "We will find you." I didn't look back as I flew. I knew if I just kept going, they wouldn't be able to catch me. Emma taught me how to fly fast, and that is exactly what I did, especially as the sun started to rise on the horizon. I flew back to our aunt's house, fear filling my senses as I saw our aunt's car in the driveway. My wings flew in an unorganized way as I flew down and in through our bedroom window after propping it open. I felt my hands shaking as I looked around the room. It looked terrible. The blankets were on the floor, spellbooks were tossed to the side, and footprints on any papers on the ground. I fell to my knees, trying to gather up some paper. My hands shook violently until it all stopped when Emma's necklace hit the ground under my palm. I feel tears fill my eyes and shove the feelings down as I grab our spellbook, shoving the papers inside of the cover and looking for Emma's sweater. I still felt tears running down my face as I grabbed it off the bed and quickly flew back out the window. If Ava found us there before, I knew she would find me again. I glanced towards the city, feeling small towards the world. The fear of everything out to get me fills my mind. I shake my head, grasping Emma's sweater tightly as I look towards the forest. "At least it would be much harder to find me there," I mumbled to myself, setting off towards the tree line and then much farther in. I didn't get far before the feelings formed stronger than I could push them down. Tears blurred my vision, and I couldn't control the unorganized flapping of my wings. My tail curled around tightly on my leg, and my horns felt sore against the wind, probably from headbutting Ava. I didn't realize I started flying downwards until the trees filled more of my vision than the sky. The soft reds of the sky were turning blue as the sunrise got above the horizon, and I couldn't help the flood of tears that came to my eyes once again, blinding me as my wings paused, my body shaking as a gust of wind threw me to the side. I flinch and shake my head, trying to rid the tears from my eyes as I hold tightly onto my belongings. I close my eyes tightly as I swerve around a tree that is much closer to me than I had last seen. But as I move, my wing clips one of the last branches and throws me to the side as my wings recoil in pain. It was the last bit of airtime I got until snapping branches, scared birds, and my soft cries filled the otherwise silent forest. I cry out in pain as I land on the ground, branches still falling around me, one landing on my back. It was light, but it didn't stop the pain that surged through my wings and down my spine. I felt cuts and bruises all along my body, pain immobilizing me as I lay there covered in twigs, leaves, small branches, moss, and, most of all, dirt, all of which seeped into every small cut and scratch I had on my body. I formed tight fists as I try and force myself up, pain surging through my body the moment I move, and I gave in to the pain, lying down again and trying to focus on healing, creating a small blue flame in the palm of my hand to try and focus most of my healing on certain spots at a time. I continue to lie there as my magic does its thing, the pain slowly going away as time passes. I continue to lie under the branches before my tight fist felt empty. I flinched as I sat up weakly, my body shaking but full of adrenaline as I looked around for Emma's necklace. Small strands of the string were still laced around my fingers, but the rest of it was nowhere to be seen. And neither was my necklace. I didn't even care about mine, but I needed hers. I needed the last piece of her that I could hold. As I sat up, pressure was released from my gut. The book and her sweater, although a little dirty, lay underneath me, completely unscathed. I quickly picked it up, kicking the branch off myself before looking around me. Tears come to my eyes quickly as I don't see her necklace. I stand up, holding the book and her sweater tight to my chest, pain running weakly through my body as I start to walk around, panicked. Kicking small piles of dirt, lifted rocks, through branches, and eventually, I saw a glimmer through a pile of dirt. Once it caught my eye, I quickly dove towards it, swiping away the dirt and dust, leaves only to uncover my necklace. It was a good few feet away from where I had landed, which only meant Emma's could be so much farther. I fall to my knees, feeling defeated as I sit there and cry. I had lost her and then lost the last piece of her that I could hold. I continued to sob like a child, wiping my tears away with my sweater and rubbing dirt across my face, which only made it hurt more, and in turn, made me cry more. I can't do this alone. I don't know how. I mumble, tears streaming off my face and onto her sweater. Emma, I'm so sorry. I should have told you what Ava thought. I should have known it would get this far. I feel my breathing pick up speed, short and sharp gasps of air filling my lungs. I shouldn't have pushed you to tell them. It would have been fine if we kept it all a secret. I couldn't help but scream as I held her sweater close. I bite my tongue as Ava's words ring through my head. My wings tight at my sides only added to those words. This sinful form. A monster. I scream again, wishing just to get her voice out of my head. My voice seemed to echo against the countless trees. As my screaming slows to a stop, my voice cracking and my throat feeling sore and dry, I feel my body relax in one of the worst ways I could think of. I felt so tired, so weak, so numb. I'd been sitting there crying for close to an hour now, and now I just sit against a tree, tear stains on my face covered in dirt, small scrapes and cuts I didn't bother to heal, and in a form I wish I could tear apart. My tired body allowed me to continue breathing at a normal pace again instead of gasping through tears. I looked up at the sky, feeling lost. I lay there for another few minutes, unable to sleep as adrenaline still flowed through my veins, but I didn't want to do anything else. There was nothing else to do. My somber thoughts are interrupted by a distant bark. It sounded pained, weak, and small. I feared it was a hurt animal, and it seems that was all I needed to push myself to my feet. I looked at my hands, taking notice of the healing magic that flowed through me. As I started walking towards where I heard it, I could hear small whining as well. I hesitantly approached. It seemed like a lot of tree branches from up high fell over here. They were thin and chipped. I peer behind a tree to see a small silver wolf pup trapped under a branch. I gasp softly as I see it turn its head towards me. I quickly turn away from it, hiding behind the tree, trying to scope out my surroundings and see if it's alone. It barks again, pain shooting through my body as I pause. I shake my head, forcing away my fears as I walk over to it, hopping over a branch and slowly lifting the one off of it. I started healing it, but it didn't take long before I noticed its bright silver eyes staring at me. I felt fear rising in my gut as I thought back to the wolf in my dreams, the way it warned me of everything that happened, and I was naive to think that this was all a lie. I finish healing it, and my fire fizzles out below my palms as I sit there staring in some sort of angry way. It just sat up and stared back at me before it bowed its head and pushed something in its paws towards me. My eyes flicker between something glimmering in the dust and back to its eyes before I gasp and stare at the pile of dust, quickly dusting off the purple stone attached to the thick black strings of Emma's necklace. I hold it close to me, tears streaming down my face, making my already dry eyes hurt. The wolf seemed to smile at this as it turned to walk away. I flinched as I heard the jingle of a collar and its paws hit the ground. "Wait," I say softly. It turned its head, pausing and looking at me. "You're him, aren't you?" The collar gave me some sort of confirmation it wasn't wild, and the way it turned as I said wait was the rest of it. It bowed its head in a gentle yet guilty-looking nod. "What's your name?" I say softly, not wanting to hate him as much as Emma did. He did all he could to warn us of a fate that was probably already set in stone. It looked around before scratching off the collar around its neck and nudging it towards me. I picked it up and rubbed off the dust covering the name. "Winter," I mumbled, reading it aloud. "Do you want this back on? I can't imagine it's easy to put it on by yourself." He nodded softly, and I unclipped it just to clip it back on around its neck. He continued to look around, almost looking lost before he turned and set off towards some bushes. "Wait, please," I say softly, looking around almost for something to say. "Thank you," I say, looking down at Emma's necklace as I wrap it around my hand again. "Do you think I could follow you?" He seemed to pause and nod once again, waiting for me to stand up before he leaped over some bushes and onto a small deer trail, which we followed for some time. After a while of walking, we came to a clearing, a small cave and stream coming from a small waterfall off the hill the cave was in. Winter seemed so happy with himself that he remembered which way to go, and I felt my body drag on as I wandered towards the stream. Winter watched me closely as I ran my tail under the water, dirt, dust, and blood coming off of it into the water just to be swept away by the current. I sigh and sit down on a nearby rock, placing Emma's sweater and the book a little aways from the water. I just let the water run over my tail as I sit there with my arms crossed and my legs close to my chest, my head resting on my knees as I watch the water. After a short pause, I looked at him confused. He wasn't just a wolf, I know that much now, but the way he knows so much more than any normal creature. "What are you?" I say softly, unaware of the rude tone as I look at him. I could see him flinch, his tail going still beside him before he poked my tail with his paw. "A demon, too?" I mumble softly, looking at my tail. I sigh and snicker weakly. "A good demon, right?" He nods and looks back at the water. I do the same before my eyes closed. "To outcasted good demons," I mumbled weakly before I felt my body finally let go of the adrenaline, and before I knew it, I was asleep. Well, not for long. In my unconscious state, I leaned forward, my wings doing anything but keeping me upright, and a very cold and wet awakening awaited me as I landed in the stream. Winter jumps up and stares at me as I sit there completely confused, sitting upright in the water, my wings falling to my sides and my tail moving against the small waves. I sit there a little longer, letting the mist from the waterfall fall on me. Winter smiles and jumps in the water, splashing me and waking me up more. I laugh and splash some water towards him. "What was that for?" I say as he splashes some more water at me. I couldn't help the tired laugh that escaped me as we continued to splash water at each other. After we tired each other out, I washed the rest of the dirt off my wings as we headed towards the cave. The sun was starting to set, and I needed to sleep more than ever. I glanced up at the sky as it turns a dark blue. There was no light pollution from the city out here. The stars shone brightly against the sky. It was a beautiful night out, and it made me sad Emma wasn't here to see it too. I slowly grabbed the book and her sweater as we head to the cave. Winter was already lying beside a rock, and I could see something behind it, but I didn't care enough to investigate. I laid down Emma's sweater as a pillow, curling into a ball, my sweater still soaking wet and cold against my body, although I didn't really care. I looked at her stone, wrapped around my hand, and felt weak tears streaming down my face. I was too tired and weak to cry, but the tears didn't stop. I heard Winter shift, and I flinched as he came and laid beside my back. My tears seemed to slow down slightly. His fur pressed against my back, comfortably grounding myself as I fell asleep.